Today on the podcast, we have Michael Chernow, Creatures of Habit. What's going on, brother?
What up, man? Thanks for having me.
It's been a long time coming.
I know. We've been on the DM text chain for a minute now.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you down here in Austin, Texas from upstate New York.
I bought a pair of Tacova boots, man.
Oh, you did?
Dude, I had to.
Which ones did you get?
I didn't go crazy. I got these guys.
They look good, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm stoked on them. I've wanted a pair. You know, the PBR comes to Albany every year, and so we always take the kids to go see the bull riding.
Yeah.
And every time I'm there, I'm like, God damn it, I need a pair of cowboy boots. And my wife's an equestrian, so my wife is on a horse every day. And you know, I'll get there. I'll get on a horse. But you know, it's fun. And in Texas, I was like, all right, this is the time. This is the place. I got to get a pair of boots.
I was driving into work yesterday, and this new Aaron Watson song popped up. Aaron Watson's a Texas country artist, real Texas country artist. And just like his music, it was that perfect song. All I wanted to do was throw a pair of cowboy boots on, go on a back Texas country road, put the windows down, and just fly, man.
Especially in that truck, dude, because that truck, that thing is incredible.
Have you seen the old truck?
That's what I'm talking about.
The 74?
Oh my gosh, that is so cool.
Yeah, I love it. It's been a project that I've wanted to bring to life for a long time now. Came across the perfect truck, and it just got delivered last week. The kids love it. I love it. My wife's afraid of it, but it's all good things.
Dude, I mean, when I pulled up and I saw that, I saw you post about it last week, and I was just like, man, that is a good looking truck.
It's fun.
The color too, like the whole spec, the whole project. I mean, is it all gutted? Is it fully restored?
It's fully restored, but it still drives like an old truck. I mean, speedometer doesn't work really well. Fuel gauge doesn't work really well. Everything's manual. I was dropping my daughter off at school last week in it, and I want to get back in the truck after dropping her off, and to unlock it, you got to put the key in the door, turn it. And this woman was passing me saying, I haven't seen one of those in years.
Where you got to actually open it with a key?
And I said, you mean the truck? She said, no, you're using a key to open your door. I guess you're right.
Yeah, totally.
So from my understanding, you, like many of us, myself included, are a creature of habit. I think a lot of high achievers are creatures of habit. And also from my understanding, your morning routine is pretty robust and built out. I thought it'd be a good way to set the stage for what is to come in this conversation. What is your morning routine? What's it look like? What's it consist of? How long does it take? Share it with me.
Sure. So I actually have two morning routines. I have the non-negotiables, which get done no matter what, no matter where I am, no matter how tired, no matter, you know. The non-negotiable morning routine is a little bit more concise. My ideal morning routine, meaning I'm in my flow, I'm at home, I'm not traveling, you know, I've got all my tools. I've built my home life to accommodate my family, of course, first and foremost, but to accommodate the most important hours of the day for me between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. I believe that the morning hours are where we grow. And my non-negotiable morning routine is where I connect with God. And, you know, I know that's not for everybody, but for me, God is massive in my life. And I can't tell you exactly what, why, where, or how, but I can tell you that God has given me an opportunity to do all the things that I do today. Because prior to my relationship with God, about 21 and a half years ago, I was a lost soul, you know? And so my morning routine now, and I know you probably hear this all the time, but it really does start at night. You know, it starts at, I don't do this anymore, but for anybody listening, I feel like if you really want to get ahead of a morning routine or initiate or implement a morning routine, don't worry about your wake up alarm. Worry about your go to bed alarm. The go to bed alarm is, in my opinion, the commitment that we need to make. Because if you go to bed at 9:30, waking up at 5 or 5:30 is just going to happen naturally, right? And you'll get a good 7.5 to 8 hours of sleep, which is my sweet spot. So I go to bed every night at 9:30, and that's just the way I do it. And I have all sorts of tools that I use in bed just because I want to optimize this opportunity, 8 hours of my day. Like imagine, right? Like you're just given 8 hours and you can either make the most of it or really dilly-dally, right? Like getting a strong 8 hours of sleep could change your life. Most cases will. So I go to bed at 9:30 every night. I have these really incredible headphones that I put in. It's actually a new thing that I've started doing. It's a company that sent these things to me. They're super flat, and so they like you don't feel them in your ear, and you can set it to a certain sound, like a sleep sound, like a white noise or whatever. Anyway, so I put those guys in. I have an eye mask.
What sound do you play? I'm very interested in this right now because my nighttime routine is very built out and structured, as well as my morning routine. I'm feeling you. I'm hearing you right now. Me and my wife, we have all the tools built around like how we go to sleep with our sauna and sometimes cold plunging at night and our red light therapy and our sleep mask and our 8 sleep on our bed. And we're also in bed by 9:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have our rituals and our routines for the evening. And I also agree with if you were trying to set yourself up for success, if you're trying to set your day or yourself up for success right now, you're already behind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm constantly looking forward and planning backwards. Good example of that this morning, as I'm prepping my breakfast, I was also prepping tomorrow's lunch and third meal of the day. So I'm always like one step ahead. So I love where you're going with this. But let's go back. I'm curious about these sleep.
The sleep pods are called Oslo, OZLO. They have about 15, 20 different sounds you can play. I'm currently on Cloak. That's the sound that I listen to.
Nice.
And it's just like it's a subtle white noise, right? These things are a game changer. I'm just here to tell you.
I'm going to get them.
They're amazing.
I'm going to get them.
They're incredible. And the coolest thing about them is that they're super flat, right? Like I typically always go to bed listening to an audiobook or a podcast. That's just something that I've done for a long time. And it's a funny story about that actually. I bought this property about 2.5 hours north of New York City in 2012. And I got an interesting story about why we did that too, but we'll get to that later maybe. This property is incredible, right? It's a 55-acre piece of land.
Oh, wow.
It's a big piece of land. It's got a 300-year-old farmhouse on it. Cool outbuildings. It's just like a beautiful property that was like peanuts 12, 13 years ago. Now, because of the pandemic, that whole region just got flooded and people were buying property sight unseen. So it's a very different environment there now than it was when we bought it. Anyway, we moved, we were using this place on the weekends, and I was going to the farm store, which is like right down the road from me, every weekend. And then, about 3 months after we moved there, this woman stops me in the farm store, super eccentric. Like I just knew she was a little bit wackadoodie. And she goes, I've been seeing you here. Did you just move into the area? I was like, oh, we bought a house right down the road. And she was like, oh, where? I was like, we're on the other side of the Taconic. It's about a, quarter mile-ish off the Taconic. And she's like, which house? And I was like, 1230 Harlemville. And she goes, oof, do you know about that house? And I was like, I love it. We were excited to be there, She's like, I rented your house like 25 years ago before we moved up here, and it was poltergeist haunted. And I was like, appreciate that information. Really nice to meet you.
Yeah, seriously.
Thank you so much for your kindness. I'm going to continue shopping now, and it just sent, like scary stuff, right? Like, haunted house is super old. Anyway. So when I would go to bed there, I'm like, after she said that, I'm thinking like, all right, like any noise is something, and the house is old. So there's creaks and cracks. And I started going to sleep with an AirPod in, or like a headphone in to be able to like dull out any of the noise.
Right.
Because I just, I'm scared of ghosts, man. I'm just scared of ghosts. There's a few things I'm scared of. One of them is ghosts. Anyway, so the Oslo sleep pods really do help me with that. So I go to bed, and the cool thing about them is that you can set up the sound, but then you can also stream a podcast or an audiobook, and then you set the timer on that, and as soon as that timer goes off, you go right into the sound. I'm asleep typically after hitting a podcast or an audiobook within 90 seconds. Like, I put my head down, I'm out. I've just gotten really, really good at falling asleep. So I wear an eye mask, I have an 8-sleep mattress, and we have blackout shades. So I hit the bed and I'm asleep. And when entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, or just people reach out in general, I'm sure you get a bazillion DMs from people saying, "Hey, can I chew your ear for a second? I'm trying to figure out how to do this next thing." People I meet in person, friends, they'll say, what can I do to be more committed, more disciplined, And the first question I ask is, what time do you go to bed? The truth of the matter is, nothing really great. You never hear great stories outside of potential war stories. But you never hear great stories of achievement, of goal, of success after 10 o'clock at night. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right? Most success stories happen in the morning or during the day at some point. And so if you want to optimize that, go to bed earlier. It's just a simple thing that you can start doing. And the way I always tell people to do is legitimately put a go to bed alarm in your phone or on your, on your watch, whatever it is, and then commit to it. And so that even if you're not tired, that 9:30 clock dings, you just go. You just go, and you will get better at it, And then, so my morning routine is, so I wake up typically somewhere between 5 and 5:15. This is my ideal morning routine. I wake up somewhere between 5 and 5:15. My wife does not wake up between 5 and 5:15. She has banned me from our bathroom. I have to sneak out and go downstairs to the guest bathroom. And so I sneak out, I go downstairs to the kitchen first, and I fill up a 30-ounce jug of water with a bunch of supplements that I put in there just to kind of kick off my hydration. I get into the bathroom, I brush my teeth, I floss my teeth, I rinse my mouth, scrape my tongue, take a piss. I put cold water on my face, I put on my contact lenses, and then I hit my knees. And so this part of my morning routine is something that I've been doing for, a little over 21 years. And when I first got sober, I've been in recovery for that long, a little over 21 years. The first guy I met that introduced me to this new world of freedom from addiction specifically, he wrote a whole plan for me, but he told me that I would have to pray if I wanted to work with him. And I didn't grow up in a religious household. I didn't really know much about prayer, but he said, all you got to do is get on your knees and ask for help. That's all I'm asking you to do. In a humble position, on your knees, in the morning, just connect with God. That's it. Ask for help. It could just be help, right? And so obviously my prayers have evolved over the years. But so I pray for about 5 minutes. And most recently, I've changed a few things in my prayers where I used to ask God to remove certain things that I didn't like about my life, or certain things that could potentially present as hurdles: fear, insecurity, character defects, character assassinations. I mean, basically, I would say every morning, God, please help to remove my fears, my insecurities, my character defects, my character assassinations, my wrong thinking, and my rationalizing. And then I would finish with, please allow me to be of service today. And more recently, in the last probably 6 months, I was having a conversation with a buddy, and we were talking about God and our prayer, and he said, you're putting that into the universe. That negative stuff, the fear, the insecurity, you're saying it every morning. Why don't you flip it on its head, and instead of saying that, just say, hey, God, please help to bring optimism and positivity and confidence and courage and kindness and presence and, joy into my day, as opposed to asking him to remove the bad stuff. Because if he introduces that stuff, they say it's really hard to be angry if you're smiling, right? Like if I get that stuff, then I don't have to worry so much about the fear and the insecurity, right? Like if my day is blanketed with this positive stuff. So that's one thing I do. So I say my prayers, and I call it prayers, push-ups, and poses. I do as many push-ups as I can right after I pray. I'm in that like 76 to 77 range right now. And it's gotten, as I've gotten older, they haven't gotten smaller. They've actually grown. Consistency works. And then I do some yoga poses. I do up dog, down dog for 5 rounds. And then I do cat cow for 5 rounds. And then right when I'm done with that, in the guest bedroom that's connected to the guest bathroom, I sit on my little meditation stool. I turn on my red light and I meditate for about 10 minutes. And I kind of think about prayer as talking to God. And then I think about meditation as listening to God, right? And so I like to try to spend a little bit more time listening than I do talking. And so I meditate for about 10 minutes. And then I walk back out of the guest bedroom, make my way into the garage, and that's where I have my sauna, my cold plunge. And I sit in the sauna for about 20 minutes. And that's where I get my reading done. I like to read in the sauna. And then it's a battle every single morning. It's never like, oh, I'm just going to hop in the cold plunge. It's just always a battle. I'm always trying to convince myself that it's just, I did it yesterday and I just don't need to do it today. I could just go take a cold shower. It'll be easier, faster. But, I always fight that fight and end up in the cold plunge for somewhere between 3 and 4 minutes. And that's where I get to like really slow down my breathing, really get centered, really get focused. The cold plunge is, obviously there's a lot of talk about cold plunging and all the health benefits. And for me, I really do believe, and I've been doing cold plunge for probably about 10 years. And for me, it's understanding this idea that, we are going to have to do things that we don't want to do if we want to get to places that we've never been. Right? And if you could start your day like that, because every day it's a battle to get in that thing. 39-degree water in a, 30-degree garage, if not colder in the wintertime, it's hard. It's hard. And so I set myself up for success, grabbing the confidence to just go in there and do it. And then I get out of there and I'm like, unstoppable, man. I feel so good.
The dopamine dump from a cold plunge. I mean, that's why I cold plunge. It's because I know what is to come when I get out.
Oh.
That dopamine dump is unlike anything else.
Can't beat it.
You're alive. You're awake. You're ready.
So alive.
Yes.
It just fires up every system in your body, right? Like every system in your body, especially if you're able to slow down your breathing. And, for years, I used to cold plunge with my hands under my armpits and my legs crossed. And now I'm just like, and I'm kind of lucky. I have a really incredible cold plunge.
Which one do you have?
I have the new Plunge G2.
Okay.
Thing is sick. It's like, I don't know what it is about that. And I've had plunges before from Plunge. This one is just, it's the granddaddy. Like it's just so cool. So I love that thing. I love and hate it. I love and hate it. But cold plunging has definitely been an asset for me, mentally, physically, spiritually. There's a lot of things you can do, but trying to actually slow it down in a really, really intense time prepares you for life.
Agreed.
Even if it's only for 3 minutes. So I do that every morning. And then, I have a little mirror on the wall. My gym is in the garage. And so once I'm done with that cold plunge, I walk past the mirror. I give myself a look in the eye. I used to say all sorts of, what are they called? Positive affirmations. Now all I do is I just look at myself in the eye, good hard look. And I say, today's the day, Mikey, go get him. I walk out. And at that point, it's about, whatever, an hour and a half after I've woken up, an hour and change. My wife and kids are just starting to get up. And I am the absolute 100% best version of myself, period, done. I am dad, I am husband, and I'm ready to be that person. And, if nothing else good happens, right? Like if nothing else good happens, because, in business, some days you're going to be high-fiving and hugging, but more days than not, you're going to be navigating the weeds and trying to figure out how to get yourself out of them.
Blocking and tackling.
That's it. So like you do that for yourself in the morning. And the other thing that I've said, that I feel is those hours, those hour and a half and change I get in the morning could be spent sleeping. A lot of people will, I've been talking about a morning routine for a long time, and morning routines were hot and heavy, right? Like three years ago, like everybody's got their morning routine. Now it's become a lot different. I don't care what people think about my extensive morning routine. It makes me a better person.
Mm-hmm.
It just does. I have the confidence to do it. I have the discipline to do it. And I'm not saying if you don't have those qualities and values, but for me, it doesn't matter to me what you think about my, 15-step morning routine. When I'm done with it, I am a better human being than had I not done it.
Yeah.
And then, like I typically will hang with the wife and kids, have breakfast every morning at the breakfast table. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I take the kids to school. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go straight to train. Tuesday, Thursday, I drop them off at school. I'll train, and then I head to the office.
I also love my mornings, so I wake up at 4:30 a.m. every morning to give myself at least 2 hours before the family's up.
Yep.
I got younger kids, so my daughter's 3.5, my son is 1.5. They pretty consistently wake up between 6:30 and 7:30 a.m. However, there's the occasion where someone's up at 4 and stays awake. But I'm pretty confident in my morning routine, knowing that if I wake up at 4:30, I at least have typically 2 hours. And my morning routine is just as robust and built out. But I know that if I can commit that time to myself, I'm going to be the best version of myself for that day.
100%.
I would much rather wake up at 4:30. I even do on the weekends now. Wake up at 4:30, have my 2 hours to work on myself, and then be prepared and ready to be with my family.
Well, also just think of this, right? Like, so you're sacrificing. Like people will say, oh, that, morning indulgence routine, selfish. I'm like, not when you're waking up before everybody else, right?
Exactly.
Like I'm not sacrificing their time. I'm not sacrificing my time with them. I'm actually sacrificing my time to be able to do that. But you just not only did you earn the ability to be the best version of yourself between 4:30 and 6:30, but you just earned 2 hours of life that are insanely productive every single day. So that's 365 times 2 is whatever that is. My math is probably not going to be right, but 600, whatever that is, 750 hours a year that you just earned by waking up earlier of life, of progressive, intense time that you're spending on yourself so that you can benefit everybody else in your life.
Yes.
I mean, how could you not want to capitalize on that? Like, I just don't see there is zero downside.
I agree. I also love that you said nothing great really happens after, say, 9:30 p.m. When I try to read in the evening, it is like a 40% effectiveness reading score that I'll give myself. And I'll lay in bed and I'll read a book or I'll read my Bible and I'll get through a certain section. And I'm so tired from the day. I think, I don't know what I just read.
You gotta read
so
it like
I go
4
and
times.
I reread it. And I'm not actually like digesting and consuming and really holding on, retaining any of that information, any of that content. But when I do the same thing in the morning, like I listen to audiobooks or podcasts on my runs. I will read my Bible as soon as I wake up in front of the red light. I'm retaining every single, not just word, every letter. My brain is firing. One of the biggest game changers for me and my wife the last couple of months, we only started recently using red light therapy. Immediately upon waking up, I go to the fridge. I have a shaker bottle of 25 ounces of cold water that has electrolytes in there. I'll come back. I'll sit in front of the red light, infrared light therapy for 15 to 20 minutes. That's been a game changer for both me and my wife to wake up and feel really good in those first 30 minutes upon waking.
Totally. I mean, I know the science. There's a lot of science on red light. I think the science is changing a little bit. At the end of the day, sitting in front of a light that's going to ultimately penetrate you on a cellular level, no downside. Like there's just no downside, right? Like if you have access, and so do I, so there's that super structured, robust morning routine. And then there's the non-negotiable morning routine, which is way simpler. And sometimes I'll even do this, like on the weekends, I'll even do this because I want to get a workout in earlier and not have to, on the weekend specifically, all I care about is like hanging out with my wife and kids. That's a fact. Like that's what I want to do. Like that is what I want to do for my life in general. Like the more time I'm spending laughing and loving my wife and kids, the better my life is going to be. And then of course, peppering in friends as well. But so my non-negotiable is basically I wake up at the same time. I head downstairs, I drink a bunch of water. If I'm traveling, I go wherever I can to drink a bunch of water. I get into the bathroom, I brush, I floss, I rinse, I tongue scrape, I wash my face, and I do prayers, push-ups, and poses. And if that's all I can do, I'm good. I think that connection, I do have to put an emphasis. All that other stuff is wonderful. And I, like you, am blessed to have worked my butt off to be able to collect all these tools to have at my disposal in the house. But none of this stuff is possible for me. First and foremost, without my recovery and my sobriety. But second, just without a relationship to God. And again, I can't. I can't tell you exactly who, what, where, when, and why it works so well. But talking to God in the morning for me is like, putting on my shoes before I leave the house. Like it has to happen. And it's been very powerful. The one thing I've done, staying sober is a very difficult thing to do. Getting sober is very hard. Staying sober long-term is really, really hard because there's, so many influences. Life throws curveballs. Things get really hard. Things get really awesome. You want to celebrate. You want to mourn. It's a lot of, feelings are hard. Feelings in general are just hard, whether it's coming from family or business or friends or death, whatever it is. And, human beings, I believe, are conditioned, especially now, to not want to feel. We are looking for comfort. It's just what it is. Mm-hmm. There's been great books written about it recently. I don't know if you've read The Comfort Crisis or, but there's where for whatever reason we want to be warm, we want to be fed, and we don't want to have to lift up heavy things, right? Or, run, fight. Yeah, fight. It's just, and the one thing I've done every single day since I've made the decision to put a plug in the jug and stop using substances was pray. It's the one thing. I've done a lot of other things, a lot of consistency, but the one thing I have been unbelievably consistent with, without fail, is prayer.
When did that first action of prayer evolve and turn into a relationship with God?
It's a great question. Honestly, recently.
Like years recently or months recently?
Months recently, where I really believe I never thought of meditation as listening, right? And I've been meditating on and off for years now. But I was talking to my therapist 6 months ago, and she's Christian, and we don't really it's like kind of church and state, right? Like we don't always, talk about God in therapy session. But, she said to me, she asked me a question that like, I kind of got stumped, right? She was like, what is your relationship with God? And I was like, I pray every morning and my life is great, not without its faults and challenges, but my prayer. And she's like, so let me ask you a question. She said, if you were in a relationship and you were just the only one speaking, like, what do you think the other person in the relationship would feel if you're the only one talking? Because right now, your prayer in the morning, like you're the only one talking. You're not giving God a chance to talk. You're not receiving. You're just talking. And so I was like, wow, that's a really interesting perspective, And so about 6 months ago, I started meditating and journaling on this idea that it's got to be a two-way street. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really understand that because my wife is a self-proclaimed atheist. And so it makes it really difficult because I try my best because how powerful God's been in my life. But she is just adamant about her belief, and I'm fine with that, right? I'm not trying to force or convince or whatever her to want to start looking at God the way I do. But I don't go to church. Right? Like I've been like YouTubing my way through this thing. And so she had proposed that after my prayer, I sit in silence for, 2 to 3 minutes just to receive. And then throughout my day, instead of, something hard comes up saying, God, I'm going through this, brother, like just receive. And that has begun the what I believe to be the chapter 2 after 20 years of, talking a lot. And now also kind of understanding that meditation practice is also an opportunity for me to listen,
I love to hear that. What I've learned through my walk in faith is there is religion and there is faith. And religion is the study of people and culture and systems and beliefs. But faith is a relationship with God. It's truly believing. And that relationship is a two-way relationship. There's the speaking and there's the listening. And I do a lot of my prayer in the sauna in the evening. And it is like 15 minutes of intense prayer. And I can feel the Holy Spirit talking back to me, answering my questions. Things just come to me. And, are you in scripture? Are you in the Bible at all yet?
I've started, I just started in the beginning of the year reading Jesus' Calling, which is a really cool book. And it kind of gives me an opportunity to focus on certain verses that simplifies the Bible for me. I have not read the Bible, and it's definitely something, so I'll also say that for the first 19 years of recovery, I came up through the 12-step programs. And in the 12 steps, they strategically present faith, relationship with higher power in such a way that it doesn't turn anybody off, because, lots of people have, trauma around religion, right? If you grew up in a really religious, very strict household, that might have been what propelled you to want to drink later on in life or use later on in life. So they basically say this is an opportunity for you to create a higher power of your own understanding. Doesn't matter what it is. For me, for a long time, it was water. I was like, I want to have something to believe in. Water keeps me alive. If I don't have water in my day, I'm parched. If I don't drink for a few days, I'm dead. So, let me just use something as this ability to have a understanding of something that's going to help me stay alive. And if this is what they're saying, I need to stay sober, also known as alive for me, water seems like a good one, And so, but over the last year and a half, I have, and it's not like I've been on a journey looking for it, but Jesus Christ has been showing up in my life in abundance. I mean, so much so, this might be a little woo-woo, but we're on the topic, so I'll just share the story. I was driving in Utah about 4 months ago with a buddy of mine who's also Christian. And we were just, we were talking about life and, Jesus Christ and things like that. And we were driving and I looked up, and Utah is amazing. I mean, it's a it's just beautiful country. It's just, there's mountains everywhere. And I looked up and I saw Jesus, and I had to pull the car over, and it was just bizarre. Like, it was, I'm not the guy that's going to be like, oh my gosh, I just saw Jesus, but I did. And whether it was a figment of my imagination or it was a sign for me to start walking that direction, I saw Jesus, man, and I've met a number of people that have just been talking to me way more about that. And so if I have subliminal reasoning to want to lean a certain direction that there's no downside towards, I lean, and so it's a new thing for me, but it's become certainly like my prayer has now gone from God to Lord Jesus.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's nothing woo about it. I would encourage you, lean in to those feelings and God calling you, because in a lot of situations and circumstances, I found myself in the past of resisting that calling because, to be honest, I didn't want to be that guy. And when I surrendered everything to him, changed my life completely. My life in the last year is not the same life it was a year ago. I've only recently, in the last couple of months, committed my life to following Christ. And I went all in and surrendered everything and in the Word. And if you're interested, I'd love to share some resources with you after this.
Yeah.
Like books that I've read, how I've gotten started reading the Bible and being in Scripture, because Scripture it's the truth. It's the Word. And it has transformed my life, my joy, my peace, my rest that I've never experienced in my life before, my relationship, my marriage, me as a father, a leader, a husband. There's a good Bible that I read that I highly recommend. It's John Maxwell's Leadership Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And throughout Scripture, it'll have these little blurbs throughout from John Maxwell, who's one of the best business leadership coaches, mentors in the world. And it translates Scripture to leadership principles and how to apply it to your life or your business, your family.
Wow.
I'll send you a copy of this Bible, and it's absolutely amazing. But
I kind of I look at this topic as, if I really just sort of peel back the onion and say, okay, whether you believe it or not, even if there's a slight chance, as a ambitious, smart human being, that you have support from this being that is almighty, all you have to do is connect to it. Believe that is with you and within you, helping you make decisions, helping you get through things. Not going to fix your life, not going to pull you out of a burning building necessarily. But there's an opportunity to work with, live with, enjoy grace, right? Like, why would you not do that?
Yeah. Your life is saved by faith through grace. Christianity is the one religion in belief where you are not judged based off of your actions, but based off of your faith. And that's because of grace. It's pretty amazing. And I found that when you align your priorities in life of God, family, marriage, and then everything else, life works out. It's not going to be all rainbows and butterflies. I mean, you still are going to suffer and there's still hardship and you're not resistant to all the other obstacles and hardships of life. But when things are in those priorities, it makes life restful, peaceful, filled with joy, and purposeful.
And you're never alone.
Never.
So I think that's the big one, right? Like, if anything, you can have faith that you're not doing it alone.
I would encourage you, like, I'm still new on my walk, but use me as a resource because I've had people in my life who very strong believers, people here at BPN, very strong believers that took me under their wing and mentored me and guided me, gave me the resources, the tools, the insight, and it was so helpful. So if you need any help along the way, right?
Yeah, the only one semi-hurdle I just have to, and I've talked to people about this, is the fact that my wife battles with it. You know, she just doesn't have the, my wife and I are, I mean, I'm blessed. I want to just preface by saying that. Like, I've been married in April. Oh no, excuse me, July will be 20 years. I'm married.
Congrats.
Thanks. And I met the woman of my dreams, 21 and a half years ago, right after I got sober. And no one ever would have pinned me as the guy that was going to settle down at 25, right? But I met this woman and she's never seen me have a drink. She's never, I've never used a mind-altering substance. And we're very different, like super duper different. And she knows, I mean, she used to, when I used to work super late at night. And when we first started dating, I told her that I'm recovering in sobriety. I pray every morning and I pray every night. I train my ass off because at that point I was, when I got sober, I was introduced to Muay Thai kickboxing, which ultimately saved my life along with God and, the 12 steps. But I used to get home late at night because I was working in the restaurants. And I would get home at 3 o'clock, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be so tired. And I'd get on the floor of the bathroom in prayer position. I'd say my prayer. And I'd fall asleep just like that. And she used to wake up in the morning, go into the bathroom, and I'd be on the floor in prayer position sleeping. And she'd be like, wow, and I'd be like, oh, this is who I am, this is who I am. And so she knows the guy I am. She has the whole time. But, things evolve, right? Like my faith has evolved, and I'm feeling really confident about these signs that I'm getting. I just can't not. And so the hard part though is, she's not comfortable in that world. And so the advice I was given was just like, keep doing what you're doing. Don't push, shove, convince, coerce. And then hopefully one day, maybe never, but maybe one day, Jesus will show up in her life and she'll follow. But like, don't stop doing what you're doing, Find the medium, find the balance, right? Like you don't have to talk about God or Jesus or scripture at the dinner table.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like where I've just like hung my hat on that. And I'm like, this is it's powerful for me. Because I can't tell you it's the thing, but I can tell you it's the thing that I've done consistently since I've gotten sober. And by the way, like before I got sober, I flatlined. I was dead. I died. I overdosed on heroin. Dead. And I came back. And to think that I had lived 10 years in this dark like weak place of hiding and running and lying and cheating, to be able to go from death to 2 weeks later, a life that is just so unbelievably different in such an incredible way, that there's so many people that are struggling with addiction, man. I mean, it's, everybody's saying, oh man, alcohol sales are down, 50%. America's not drinking anymore. And I'd love to believe that to be true, because it is true. There's less alcohol consumption, but it's because this is what's keeping people from drinking, because they're at home on their couch, not moving. Now, do I think it's better than getting wasted and probably committing crimes and doing bad things like that? Maybe, but this is almost as bad.
I agree.
It's almost as bad, right?
Mind wasting. Time wasting.
I invested in a new phone that I can't wait to get. I get it in February, called the Light Phone 3.
Dude, I've been thinking about
do it.
Buying the Light phone.
Do it, dude. You and me will lead the charge. I'm doing it.
I love that.
I'm doing it. I'm going to leave this at the office. So this will always be at the office, because I have to be, on social media, and, similar to you, like, you've got VPN and you've got your brand, and they work so well together, but you have to be active, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are expecting you to be active. And so I have to do that, but I don't have to do that when I'm at home.
Yeah.
And having this thing, just like, it's like this thing lives the best life out of all human lives, because this thing gets so much attention. This gets so much attention. And typically, when something really cool is going down, the first experience the first thing that gets to experience that is like this. Like I'm on, we're on this podcast, man. I want to capture this moment. I gotta get and I'm gonna get a great picture of this.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, this thing should not experience my kids' play at school before I do.
I agree. Yeah, I've had that same idea actually, is to buy the Light phone and keep my iPhone at the office and use the Light phone at home. Because the truth is, we are weak individuals and people. I even have apps downloaded on my phone that block my social media apps from certain times. But you know what I do? I go into those apps and I turn them off.
I know, man.
I'm like, what am I doing?
I know.
I'm better than this.
I know.
It is the greatest addiction that we all have. And I actually love that you say that. The world is raving that alcohol sales are down. And they are. But it is because we are glued to our phones day in, day out. First thing that's done upon waking, and the last thing that's done before closing our eyes and going to sleep. It is horrible. I mean, I walk around, we were at an event in Pittsburgh this past weekend, and we were talking to people, we were getting photos with people, and individuals kept walking in between where we were standing and getting photos, because they're walking like zombies, looking down at their phone, not knowing what's in front of them, walking into us, walking through the line. Oh my gosh, like, we're all dead.
Well, the commitment that I made last year, which I've stuck to, which I'm proud of, is, and it just came to me. I was on the train in New York City, and I was on the train, a packed train, and I just looked up from my phone, and I looked across, and there was someone on their phone, and then someone on their phone, someone on their phone, someone on their phone, 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 on their phone. No one in the train, outside of a few people in their 50s and 60s, were looking up. Everyone, 100 people, were on their phone. And it dawned on me, we don't experience life anymore. We question why there's this male loneliness epidemic. We don't experience life because we want a constant flow of stimulation and dopamine from our phones. We don't look up. Imagine trying to run a race not looking up. Well, life is a race. Whether it's a marathon or a sprint, different times, different seasons. If you're looking down, there's no shot you're going to win. Zero chance. Bar none. The person who's looking up, they got a shot.
Yeah.
So I made a commitment. On the train, no phone. Waiting on a line for anything, no phone. In a social environment that I don't know many people are, easiest thing to do, boom, pull out your phone, hide behind that thing. No phone. I do not pull out the phone. Experience with my wife and kids, no videos, not doing it. I want to be there. I want to be present. I just want to experience it. And, we're so we want to how many pictures do you have in your phone?
Probably 8,000.
How many times do you go back and look at all those pictures?
Only when I'm flying.
Okay. So we rarely go relive those experiences, right? There's something that's kind of, we believe that capturing the moment is going to optimize our lives, optimize the experience. We'll be able to look at it. And yeah, there's definitely great times for that, right? But at the end of the day, I've got 21 something thousand photos on my phone. And the only time I really go back and look at those photos, and this is sad, but it's a fact, is if I'm trying to create a carousel for
I relate to that.
Yeah. That's when I'm scrolling those photos, right? To try to create a great carousel for Instagram post.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're on a tangent, but
have you, coming from a historical background of addiction, which I want to get into, do you see similarities between the addiction of your device, your phone, and substance addiction that was 2 decades ago?
Yes, absolutely. Unequivocally. Worse, because it's widespread and totally acceptable.
Do you feel that the tools that you were provided in substance rehab apply to technology addictions?
There are 12-step programs for technology addictions.
That's wild.
Yeah, without a doubt. It's the demise of humankind. I believe it. I right here, right now, if somebody was sitting here, some decision maker, and said, Chernow, give me your 2 pinky toes right now. Cut them right off. I will eradicate cell phone use. Everything will go back to communication in person, conference call, writing a letter. I would do it. I swear to you right now, I would do it. I would cut them off right this second and I would deal with the pain. 100%. Because I'm trapped. You're trapped. When I'm on a plane, I look around and, I see people watching movies and I can't do that. In my mind, I'm no, you got to work. You have emails to catch up to. It is a constant for people in business that have been blessed to be able to have some success and leading teams. There's never not a moment in time as an entrepreneur where I am not required to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Required. Doesn't turn off. I'm sitting here right now and thinking about this. I'm oh man, it's my favorite place to get work done on a plane. But why can't I just watch a movie, man? If I didn't have an email, the biggest deals in history were done prior to email. Rockefeller got real rich without email. How can we do that? What can we do? How can we kind of slow it down?
I don't know if you can at this point. We're expected to be so accessible and responsive. I know when I get out of a podcast or from a busy day, I open up Slack and email and everything's bold because that means there's unread messages and then it's playing catch up. And I don't know how we go back to being human, unresponsive, inaccessible. I think it comes down to, and this is really hard, but setting really hard boundaries. Even going back to the earlier conversation of, hey, I'm going to bed at 9:30. And that means that before 9:30, I have to do X, Y, and Z because it's part of my evening rhythms and routine to be asleep at 9:30, to wake up at, anytime early in the morning to start my morning routine. And that requires setting boundaries with people, with ourselves, clear expectations. But when it comes to work and social relationships and technology, it's really hard to set boundaries. I don't know why, because we do it in other parts of our life.
Well, what I did at Creatures of Habit is once I saw I was able to pivot out of the restaurant business and create this new business where the busiest time of my day was not between 7 o'clock and 11 p.m., 7 p.m. and 11 p.m., which was the busiest part of my day as a restaurateur. I said to the team, hey, I'm not going to start emailing expecting you to respond earlier than 8:30 in the morning. I will not, I might start banging out emails early if I have a deadline, or if I have something, but I don't expect you to respond earlier than 8:30 in the morning. Similarly, I close my computer every single night at 5:30. I do it. Committed, I do it. And it was hard for me to do that because I was like, dude, are you really a 9 to 5 guy? And then it dawned on me, 9 to 5 is done for a reason. 9 to 5 was created to not only have a life of work in a condensed period of time, because 8 hours is probably the right amount of time to have your focus in full throttle without, diminishing returns on either end. But it also gives you an opportunity to do what life was really presented to us for, which is to love. We are love beings. It's really, really hard to love the people around you when you're stuck in an email chase. So 5:30, I shut the computer every night. I walk to my truck, get in my car. I really, really try to decompress on the drive home. Right before I pull up into the house, and this is something that I've done, and I'll tell this story because this is a really, really very pertinent to this conversation. But right before I get to the house, I create a buffer for myself because the energy that I have a lot of energy, and I'm a hard charging guy, very much like you. There's a difference in the energy between being a hard charging dad and a hard charging business person. My hard charging business person is the opposite of the energy that I want to introduce to my kids as a hard charging dad. As a hard charging dad is all love. As a hard charging business person, it's discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so I get to my house at about 5:55. Dinner's on the table every single night at 6. My wife is incredibly punctual. It's my favorite part of the day. Sitting down at the dinner table with my wife and kids. Pull the truck halfway up the driveway. I shut the thing down. I close my eyes and I do about 3 minutes of breath work. And it'll be either box breathing or I'll do the double inhale, long exhale. Or if I'm really fired up and amped up from a crazy day at work, I'll do both. I'll do 4 or 5 rounds of box breathing, and then I'll do 4 or 5 rounds of the double inhale, long, slow exhale. And it really calibrates me. It brings me back to baseline. It just does. And so anybody that's listening, if you're struggling separating business and family, and you walk in and you sit at the dinner table and you're just completely not there, I'm not here to say that it's going to fix that problem totally, because there's definitely times where I sit down at the dinner table and my wife won't be talking to me and I'm just looking at her totally lost in space on other things. But it definitely helps. It helps. In the beginning of the pandemic, probably 2021, 2022, I was not doing that. And I was just starting creating, I just kicked off Creatures of Habit. And it's a new business for me, completely new business. I'm learning on the fly. I'm literally YouTubing my way into creating a D2C brand. And so I'm under a lot of pressure. I've raised some cash and I just want to succeed. And so I'm just I got to get it in. And I pull the truck into my driveway, shut it down, and I pick up my phone and I'm just I got to get these last few emails out. Right. And I'm doing that as I'm kind of walking into the house. And at that point, my kids were probably 6 and 4. And my son, I get into the house. I don't acknowledge anybody. And I'm kind of like replaying this story, kind of like looking at it from above, right? Because I can only imagine what it felt like. And I'm walking in, and I throw my bag down, and I know that dinner's ready, and I'm like just trying to like bang it out. And my older son Finn walks right next to me, and he goes, "Daddy," and I didn't respond. He goes, "Daddy, I want to tell you something," and I just didn't respond. I'm like on the email, and he says, "Dad," and I look over at him, I say, "Dude, don't you understand that I'm doing something right now?" And I watched his face crumble, and I just couldn't believe that I had the part of my language audacity to take the one thing that my son wants in life, the one thing. He doesn't want my car. He doesn't want my bank account. He doesn't want my job. He doesn't want the fancy house or the car or the title. Only thing my 6-year-old son wants in life from me is attention. That is it. That is all he wants. He wants me to hug him. He wants me to teach him. He wants me to lead him. He wants my attention. Period. Done. Nothing else. And I took it from him. And it makes me emotional to say that because it's insane that I thought that was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that day, after I was able to reflect on that a little bit, because it sounds a little dramatic, right? Like, oh my God, I told him to, leave me alone. I'm finishing up this thing. But it was such a burst of failure for me as a dad, because my relationship with my father was absolutely terrible and there was no attention. It was really sad. And it changed the way I see my leadership as a dad. All my children want is my attention, period. That is all they want. And it's crazy to think that way, but it's just a fact. They love getting a Lego set. They love, going skiing and, going to Mexico. But I guarantee you, if you were able to get in the brain of the child looking up at his father, all that stuff can go to the wayside as long as his dad is paying attention to him, And so, that story is I think super relevant because I think we do that a lot in our lives. And yes, it's like it was so powerful for me with my kids because there's nothing I love more in life than being a father. Like, I just, if you were to look at my childhood, you would say, if you had to bet, if it was a betting man, he'd say, oh, he's going to be a terrible dad based on the blueprint that he was given. And somehow, some way I've been able to, I know how. I'm sober and I have faith. And I met the woman of my dreams that supports me. But if you looked at my childhood and you had to make a prediction of what my fathership skill set would be, you would never say that this guy cares about, the attention for his kids.
And if we're not intentional with the way we show up, especially, I really found that transition from leaving the office and work to coming home, if you don't intentionally create that time and space to kind of download, and as you walk into the home, walk in with a new temperature, you will carry all your problems from work and the day into the house. And one of the best things my wife has ever said to me was, as a leader of the household, you are like a thermometer. You control the temperature, whether hot or cold. And if you come in from work into the house hot, if before you got there, everything was comfortable, that thermometer is going to go hot right away or cold right away. So whatever you bring into the house, just know like the rest of the day, the rest of the night, that is the temperature of the household.
Totally.
And it's tough. It's tough going from like a hard day, an exhausting day, a stressful day, I'll do the same thing. I'll drive home. I'll try to just disconnect, chill, get in the driveway, park, and before I go in, ask myself, how am I going to show up as a father? How am I going to show up as a husband? And I try to bring all this new energy in, because if you're not intentional with the way you show up, you'll bring all that crap from the day into your family.
Totally.
And I think it's super relevant to hear from a lot of my audiences, younger, new dads. And it's tough. It's, you're whether you're a business owner or not, trying to manage and build a career and take care of your family and lead your family and be professionally driven, but also personally content. Doing both at the same time while raising a family and being a dad and being a husband and being a leader, it's not an easy time. It ain't just going to happen on its own passively.
So I on my drive over, I was listening to your podcast about discipline, commitment, and consistency. And, I think that there's this, when people hear the word discipline, most people kind of cringe a little bit, right? Because we think discipline is militant, discipline is hard, discipline is punishment, right? And what I've learned is that discipline is freedom, right? I think Jocko Willink says this. I actually have it tattooed on my hand because of how powerful, when I read that book, Discipline Equals Freedom, I was like, okay. Or when he says it in his book. Discipline, in my opinion, is the greatest gift human beings can have. And the beauty of discipline is that it's free.
Mm-hmm.
And it's available for all of us. It just is. And running a business, being a great dad and a great husband, taking care of yourself and staying fit and eating well, and that requires discipline. It's free. It's just free. A lot of the time we can't get out of our own way, in my opinion. And I've helped so many guys over the years come out of the darkness and start to see the light when it comes to recovery and sobriety. And sometimes I just want to shake them and be like, dude, all you got to do is do it. Stop asking questions. Stop trying to find an easier way. All you got to do is do it. That's it. How do you start? You got to do it. You got to do it. Nothing is coming on a platter. No one is going to walk you across the line. And I know it's so much harder than you just got to do it. But at the end of the day, that is a fact. Right?
It's simple.
It's simple. And what I have, I've kind of created this philosophy called the 3 C's, which I think kind of help paint the picture, because, just because it's simple, or just because it's simple does not at all mean it's going to be easy.
Exactly. They're people assume they are synonyms, simple and easy, but they can be very contrasting.
Totally. So I think that the number one most powerful skill to master is commitment. I think everything and anything you want to do that you'll want to tell stories about, as you want to tell your grandkids about, requires commitment. It's the number one. The cool thing about commitment is that it's really, really hard, especially if it's a big change. Commitment is one of the hardest things. Long-term commitment is very, very tough. But the cool thing about commitment is that commitment breeds faster than any other thing you can do. Commitment breeds confidence. It blossoms confidence, because once you understand this concept that, oh, wait a second, I can commit to this, I can do this, I can stop drinking for 5 days. Oh, I can go to 6 days. I can go 6 days. I can go to 7 days. Wait, he did tell me to like go outside for a walk. After the 7th day, I'm going to go outside for a walk. Oh, walking makes me feel good. I'm going to commit to the walk, and I'm not going to commit to the not drinking. And then before you know it, you start to begin to understand how this commitment breeds confidence component. So you got commitment breeds confidence. And then once you, and I'm not talking about in an egotistical or a conceited, cocky way, confidence. I'm talking about just like starting to feel good in your own skin, starting to feel like you are, whether you win or lose, you have the ability to execute.
You can stand firm in what you believe and what you've accomplished and what you know you are capable of. Yeah, it's not it's confidence in the most humble way possible.
Totally. So this commitment breeding confidence piece is where, you can live for a long time, right? Like years. And then ultimately with enough confidence and enough trying and failing and trying and succeeding, you begin to develop courage. And there's a lot of courage that's required for commitment, but there's a difference between courage that you're confident about and courage that you're like, all right, I'm going to die if I don't do this, right? Confident courage is what people write books about.
That's really good. That's boldness.
It's knowing that you have done enough of the thing to be able to step through the next door. You've been here enough. You've been consistent enough. You've gotten feedback enough that you're willing to, wanting to, and have been encouraged to by just organic feedback from others and from your outcomes, that you can then go open a business, that you can then go run a triathlon or do a triathlon, that you can then go run 100 miles. You don't know if you're going to finish that 100-mile race, but you've run 10 miles enough to say, you know what? I'm going to go for this. Going from never running to 100 miles rarely ever happens. Mm-hmm. Maybe David Goggins might be the first guy to ever do that, right? But that succession, commit, breeds confidence, and then ultimately, they write books about courageous people all the time.
I really love that courageous confidence. And like, as you were saying that, I had like these images come into my mind. So I'm just going to try to like describe what's like going on in my mind right now. Do that. There's like 3 words or 3 descriptions. 1, confidence. 2, courage. And 3, selflessness. And I think those 3 things, I think that's what makes a man and what separates a boy from a man. Being a selfless servant and leader, being confident and being courageous. Because you can be confident without being courageous, but that lacks boldness. You don't know what you stand for, what you believe in. You are wavering in conforming to the world. If I think of like the men I respect and look up to the most in the world, they're selfless servants and leaders. They are very confident, but they're courageous. They're bold. They are unapologetic with what they're doing, what they speak into, what they believe in. And I think if not just men, but more people put those 3 characteristic traits on a board and look at those every day. How do I become more selfless? How do I breed more confidence? How do I be more courageous? We would have more success and we would have greater contributing members of society in this world that aren't trying to conform to what is worldly or normal or accepted, but what is renewed, reborn, reimagined, transforming this world into something great. That spoke to me a lot.
Cool.
Courage is powerful.
I mean, if you are, when I think of courage, really, funny enough, the vision that I think of is the Gladiator, the movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. Love that movie so much, and it takes a certain kind of person that is willing to go out and face whatever is on the other side of the door. This notion or the buzz of soft men being softer. It's inevitable. We're given way too many creature comforts, right? There's too many ways to not be less courageous, right? Like, you don't have to get up. When you think about consistency, only until like the last maybe 100 years or so, right? Maybe 150 years. Human beings were doing the exact same thing every single day. It wasn't like weird to like wake up at the same time, get out into the fields and work, have lunch at the same time, eat the same thing, have dinner at the same time with the family, go to bed at the same time, because if you didn't get up, your chickens and your cows weren't going to get what they needed to get. This last 150, maybe 200 years of introduction of some waver in the human evolutionary track has taken us out of this ability to feel and do. Like, there was never like a question about like, oh, how do I, if there's something I really want to do, how do I do it? You do it. You just do it. If that means, how do I get in great shape? Simple, right? Doesn't mean easy. You gotta change the way you're eating, and you gotta move your body in ways that you have not moved it before. Typically with some sort of resistance training and, getting a certain amount of steps in on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Like, if you just do that, anybody listening, anybody's curious about how to get in the best shape of their life, change the way you're eating, resistance train 5 days a week, 4 days a week, and walk 10,000 steps a day if you can. If you do those three things, that's all you do. That's it. That is the solution to that question, that problem. People ask me all the time, how do I get in better shape? Like, what should I do? It has nothing to do with the plan you're on. It has nothing to do with, some great, trainer coming into your life and, telling you what to do. It's change the way you're eating, walk 10,000 steps a day, and lift weights 3 to 5 days a week. That is literally, and if you don't even have a plan, if you just got into the gym and literally YouTubed, give me 5 exercises to do today, go on to, I know we're talking technology, but like go on to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me 5 things to do today in the gym that's going to help me on this path. It'll give you a bazillion. That's all you got to do. How do you start a business? You start connecting with as many people that are doing what you want to do as humanly possible. And if that means that you got to go on social media and just start cold DMing people, I promise you 20 of them will say no and 1 of them will say yes. You just got to do it. People are like, well, what do you mean you just got to do it when it comes to business? I'm like, any way that you can get closer to people doing the things you want to do, you got to go.
Yeah.
Have the courage to do it. Commit to the 20 DMs a day. You'll get a lot of no's. Every no is getting you closer to a yes. You know,
it is simpler now more than any time ever in the history of the world to succeed. And I said this on a recent podcast, and I believe this fully, and people are going to hear it and they're going to say, no. It is actually, in order to be successful in anything, it is quite simple. It is hard. It is challenging. It's not easy, but it is quite simple. You referenced Chat GPT a little bit ago. You can literally go on Chat GPT and you can prompt it with a few questions. You can have a meal plan. You can have your macros. You can have your workout plan. You can have a blueprint for building a business. You can have a full business plan. You can have a marketing plan. I mean, you can have your layout for a book that you want to write. It is simpler now more than ever before to succeed. There are no excuses anymore with AI. Blessings and curses. When we both started our first businesses, we didn't have the blessings of Chat GPT and AI. It was just figuring it out. So I do strongly believe that there is no excuse now to not be successful in whatever it is you want to be successful in. The reason you're not successful, the reality is you're not willing to do the work. I do want to talk about your entrepreneurial journey because I do want to contrast between the brick and mortar restaurants and what you're now running as a D2C CPG brand. Going back to, when you first started your first restaurant, I want to know how you went from early to late teens addiction, sobriety, and then having the confidence and the courage to start that first restaurant.
Well, I guess I'll preface by saying I think I really do believe that some people are born with an inherent need to discover, curiosity gene. I think that really at the core is what an entrepreneur has.
I agree with that. It's an itch.
It's an itch, right? Like one of my favorite things to do with my sons in the summertime, in the spring, and in the fall too, is to like walk out into the woods and just lift up rocks and just see what's under there. Snakes and salamanders and frogs. And like, I'm just ferociously curious. I can't tell you why, but I just have. And I always have been. I'm a very curious dude. Like, I just want to know about you. I'm like when it comes to people, you could put me anywhere. My wife absolutely hates this, but I am just making friends everywhere I go because I'm curious. I want to know people. I want to, I'm just very curious. And so from an early age, we grew up in a tiny little apartment. My mom, my father, my sister, and I. It was really, really tight quarters. My father was, he was physically sick and he was verbally and physically abusive, and he was also mentally ill. So it was a tough situation. What that did for me though was it made me want to look elsewhere for the things that I was trying to get at home. So I was constantly sharpening my EI skills, right? Like I knew that if I wanted to go to my friend's house and sleep over, because I'd much rather sleep there than sleep at home, I needed my friend's parents to like me. And I remember so clearly in first grade, sitting at Ross Delafield's house in his apartment, and they had dinner around the table. And I was invited over to have dinner, and I had never had dinner around the table before, but my family never once did that. And I was like, wow, this is cool. Like they're all having dinner together, talking about their day. I was like, I want more of this. And I said, man, I got to figure out how to get Danny, which is his dad, and I forgot his mom's name. I got to figure out how to get Danny to like me, so I invite me to sleep over so I can do this more. And it just like that sort of started to hone this skill for me of like understanding people, understanding where I would be successful when it comes to developing relationships. And I know it sounds crazy as like a first grade, but this was like really the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey of connecting with humans at scale. I mean, I think that's kind of like what my superpower passion is.
I think with most entrepreneurs, founders, you can identify those traits and characteristics and superpowers early on. Maybe not in real time, but similar to you, like me growing up, I was displaying these characteristics and abilities that would prove to be strong skill sets for my entrepreneurial journey. So I think you can see these things developing at a young age.
Totally. I mean, yes, I do. I had a podcast before the Creatures of Habit podcast called Born or Made. And it's because I'm incredibly curious to know if Nick Bear was born with the ability to do what you've done, or if you were made over time through, intentional. I mean, I do think it's probably a combination of both.
It's a
combination of both is when you get to the level that you're at. But I do think it's very, very, I do believe that there is an inherent component to it.
I agree.
And so when I was a little kid, if I had toys that I wasn't using anymore, they didn't like collect dust in the corner of my room. I would ask my older sister to come downstairs with me, and I lived in Manhattan. So I lived on a busy street in Manhattan. I would set up a blanket at like 5, 6 years old, a blanket. I'd lay it out on the corner of 87th Street and 2nd Avenue, and I'd put all my toys out on it, and I'd sell them for $1. And I got once I got that, the taste of blood, of making a transaction at a young age, I was just all in. I was collecting cards, collecting comics, going to the comic book store, buying a $5 grab bag of comics, taking a comic out that I wanted to read, and then standing in front of the store, this young kid, I'd be selling comics for $1. I just always had this make, do, create, grow mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I just felt like this, it was a good feeling when I was able to have a win like that, at a young age. And so I also gravitated towards sports. So I was an athlete as a kid, and I loved winning that way. I really was I became very passionate about hockey. I played a lot of hockey, whether it was street hockey. I ended up getting into ice hockey. But around 12, 13 years old, it just got really ugly at my parents' house where I grew up, in our apartment. And it was just bad. It was violent. My father and I became very violent with each other. And he was home sick on permanent disability, essentially a hoarder. And I just didn't want to be there anymore. Just didn't want to be there. Child services were involved because the cops had been called a number of times. Eventually, at around 13 years old, I started to drink and smoke pot, and I was already smoking cigarettes. And, I at that point, I really mastered the skill of convincing my friends' parents to like me. So I was never at home. I barely stayed at home. I was always sleeping out. And so at 15, it got, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. Child services basically showed up at the house. My father and I got into a fight. They said to my mother, look, this is unsafe for your child here. Either he's going to have to go, your son, or your father. One of them has to go. We can't, this is too, it's too dangerous. And it put my mother in a very uncomfortable position because my mom was also abused and scared of my dad. So I made it easy on her. And I said to her, hey, tell the child services people that, we're going to figure this out over the next 24 hours. I'm going to leave.
How old are you at this point?
15.
15.
Yeah. I was like, I'm going to leave. It's kind of crazy to think about a 15-year-old kid, but I was basically like, I'm going to be okay. I've been doing this a long time now. It's not like I'm for the first time sleeping out of the house. I was like, but I'm much happier to leave than have to have you deal with, the crazy guy. And so I did. I left, and I stayed in high school, but I moved out. And I was really at that point at 15. I was fully, addicted to drugs and alcohol.
Are your parents still alive?
My father passed away a long time ago. He passed away 25 years ago. So not long after I moved out, 5 years after.
Do you still have a relationship with your mom?
Yeah. Yeah, my mom and I have a relationship. I love my mom. You know, she's been through a lot. You know, she hasn't been dealt the easiest hand. And she's got a lot of stuff, but I love her to death, and I do my absolute very best. I have a tattoo on my arm here that says "Bless you, change me." One of the most. My grandmother used to say this to me all the time, and she was my father's mother. And she was the most influential person in my life, my grandmother, from little kid. She was just the most wonderful grandmother ever. And she felt so sad that my dad was the way he was. And she obviously didn't know what to do, but she was a very spiritual person. And I used to call her and be like, Grandma, like, I just, this is so bad. And she used to say, honey, I know, but there's nothing you're going to be able to do to change your dad. The best advice I can give you is every time you know you're going to walk into a situation with him and it's not going to be fun, just have a saying in your head and say, bless you, change me. And I was like, she always say that, bless you, change me. And I think that is like, if you can live your life like that, where like you're not going to allow someone's way of living, someone's thought processes, someone's actions, someone's thoughts to impact you. And you're also not going to try to, project the way you live onto others and get disappointed because chances of them taking the bait on that are slim. If you can say, you know what, bless you. If I want to feel good in this situation, the one that's got to change is me. And so I practice that with my mom. You know, I'm not going to change her. She's set in her way. She is who she is. And I love her. If I want to be able to manage her, like where I don't get frustrated when we talk, the only person I got to change is me. And so that's been powerful for me. So I moved out. I was crazy. I was running the streets in New York, using drugs, selling drugs, getting into trouble. I wouldn't wish me on any parent. I just wouldn't at that stage in my life. I mean, I was a real rebel and I was terrified. I was scared. So I drank a lot and I did a lot of drugs and I was not a tough guy, but I pretended to be, getting into fights and doing all this stuff that like, if my son was doing, it'd take all the power for me not to just, grab him, throw him in the car and like drive far, far, far away and hold him in a house with me for like a year and just watch him, just not let him do what he's going to do.
And this is not some like small town in Texas. This is the streets of New York City.
Yeah.
So there's real stuff going on there.
Oh, I mean, I was, I got pistol whipped, duct tape, tied up, thrown in the bathtub, robbed, bad. It was bad.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was ugly. So I lived this really, but by the way, I should just say that like in the beginning, it did save me. Like I was suicidal at 12. I was like put into a mental institution because I slit my wrist in front of my father, thinking that he was going to come and save me and love me and give me a hug and tell me he loved me. And he like kicked my ass and they put me into Payne Whitney because they thought I was like, I didn't really want to kill myself, but I was ultimately cry for help, But the alcohol and drugs came, shortly thereafter. And I really do believe like blanketed that period of my life where I was like actually able to feel okay.
It got you out of it.
Got me out of it. So all through my teens, I was working in restaurants, working in nightclubs. I graduated high school. I actually did a year of college. And my father died when I was 20. It was a wonderful excuse to just continue to just get crazy and get worse with my addiction and dive deeper. And people around me were kind of like, oh, his father just died. In my mind, I was like, this is a perfect excuse for me to just go double down on it, And so from 20 to 23, it was just dark, just super dark. I hated myself, truly hated myself. People loved me. They did. I mean, I am who I am, like I care about humans.
Was it one of those classics, on the outside, bright, bubbly, personable, but the inside dying. And then when the drugs shifted from
predominantly like alcohol and cocaine to heroin, which was like the last 6 months of my addiction years, I was genuinely dying. I didn't think so. If I really think back on it, like I was still working. I always had a job, legit job, always had a job in a restaurant, but I was dying. Late July, summer 2004, New York City. I was with this woman in this apartment. We were, using heroin for probably 3 days straight, sleeping, getting up, using, and I had just used some heroin. I was sitting on the edge of the bed. I was naked. I looked, there was a mirror at the head of the bed. And I was sitting on the edge of the bed, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I looked to my right and I saw my reflection in the mirror. And from my forehead to my toes, I was white, like this, kind of like this. Like I had been pale and looked gray and green, in my face, my hands, I've seen my hand, like I remember my hands would get super pale. I had never seen my chest, my stomach, my legs, everything just white like a ghost. And it scared the daylights out of me. And so I jumped up, blacked out, face plant, dead. I OD'd. And I remember her shaking me, grabbing me. And I kind of remember coming to, call the ambulance. She was terrified, didn't want to call the ambulance. She somehow got me into the bathtub. She like dragged me into the bathtub and threw me on my back in the bathtub and then just turned the cold water on. She was terrified to call the ambulance. She didn't call the ambulance. I could have very well just died in that apartment. But the cold water was on my chest, and I remember like sort of coming in and out of consciousness. And then finally I came out, and I sat I got back into that bed, and I lied in that bed for a couple of hours, shaking, shivering, terrified, thinking that she was like, you stop breathing. I started to feel a little bit of life come back into me. And I remember walking, I left the apartment at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, walking west on 13th Street towards Avenue B. And I had said to myself, dude, this is the bottom of the rope. Like, you cannot do this anymore. You must stop. You just died. It does not get worse. It doesn't get worse. You will die if you continue doing this. You just did. And I got to my apartment and I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. 4 hours later, I was right back at it.
Using again?
Yeah. I couldn't stop. And so I have such empathy for people that are addicted to drugs and have an addictive personality, and their family, their friends, the public are just like, how could you not see this as can't you just, it's not easy. It's really hard when you walk around with a force field, a feeling force field. When you've taken enough action to dig a deep enough hole where you're just never not covered in dirt. And you have this ability to just numb that out. You're dirty as hell. You haven't showered in years. You're just covered in dirt in this dark, dark hole. But there's this way to like forget about all that for just a period of time. You just want to continue forgetting because you don't know that there's a way to like find a branch or find a vine that you can just start pulling yourself out. Anyway, I went on a 2-week death march. Had basically said to myself, this is how you're going to die. You don't have the balls to kill yourself. Just get it done with the drugs. Just do as much as you can. Just get it done. And somehow, some way I didn't die. The morning of August 2nd, 2004, I came to in my room after being up for about 3 or 4 days. I had slept 16 hours. I blacked out. And I remember right before that, there was a real conversation I was having with myself about just jumping out the window. But I just didn't have the courage. I didn't have the courage to do it. I didn't really care about anybody else. I didn't care about myself. I just didn't have the balls to end it that way. I'm so grateful that I didn't. have the courage to do that. But came to, and I remember the sun coming through the window, and I'd slept through work for the umpteenth time. Called my boss, said, Frank, I'm sorry, man. He was like, Mike, come downstairs. I lived upstairs from the bar that I worked in. And he said, Mikey, I love you. And he really did. He was like my surrogate dad at the time, and I was like, he hired me 2.5 years before. So, and everybody, like I said, like people loved Mikey the bartender, people loved being around me. I mean, I was like I was a guy I am right here, but I was just fun, but just scared of life. And I just used all these substances.
I knew people like this in college who were the life of the party. Everyone wanted them around when it was time to party. But then when it wasn't time to party, no one called these people.
Right.
And these people were in a dark, dark place. And I can see how you find yourself in those situations where you need to keep being the life of the party, because that's when people want you and need you and invite you back. So it's your identity.
And it was also the only people that I associated with,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because a lot of people around me were doing the things I was doing, right? They just were. Like I wasn't hanging out with, the guys going to the gym. So anyway, I remember the sun coming through, Frank calling me up. I went down to the restaurant. He told me he loved me, but he told me he had to fire me. He's like, you're dying, dude. Everybody knows it. You need help. You need to get sober. And so many people have said that to me over the years. I mean, I was in outpatient rehab when I was 16, For whatever reason, when Frank said that to me that day, I just heard that word sober like an echo chamber. It was like, and I begged him for my job because it was the only thing kind of like tethering me to like any semblance of life, right? Everything outside of that place was just debauchery and ugly. And he said, look, if you get sober, I won't let you work behind the bar. I will not let you work in this restaurant at night. But if you get sober, you can come here and clean the restaurant with the porters at 8 a.m. And you call me when you get here. If you're a minute late, you're fired. If I find out you have a sip of alcohol, you're done. Drugs of any kind, I'll know. I'll find out you're done. And I went back upstairs. Sun was still coming through the window, and it was God right there. God just showed up. Just right then and there, right through the window in my bedroom. I just don't know what happened, but I got the grace of God showed up in my life and told me to make a phone call. And I called my friend Karen. I told her I was ready to get help. She called her friend Marcus, her boyfriend Marcus. Marcus showed up and saved my life. And I haven't had a single sip of alcohol or a drug since that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so Marcus introduced me to wellness. He was this weird wellness guru, covered in tattoos, hardcore Muay Thai kickboxer. Showed up, listened to my story, asked me to tell him my story, and wrote this plan for me that day. And he said, this is going to be a very structured plan. You don't seem like the kind of guy that can manage structure right now. And he's like, you don't have to do this. But if you do, success is inevitable. Success, you have no idea. You're 23. Like, you haven't even begun. You start doing these things now, you'll live a life way beyond anything you can imagine. And I wanted to believe him. And I think the thing that Marcus did for me was he was a really cool guy that I want, like out of like right away. His energy, the way he looked, the way he listened to me, I wanted to impress him. I wanted to be like him. I wanted him to pat me on the back. And I think that is really also a very key element for people in sobriety, or people that want to get sober, trying to finding someone who they really want as a mentor,
an aspirational
human that they can sit with. And then I decided that I wanted to go back to school about a year after I got sober. So I was gonna go to culinary school and really open up a restaurant. And so I went back to culinary school. While I was doing the culinary arts program, Cornell had partnered with the French Culinary Institute to create a restaurant management program, which is like Dave Cornell's got the best hospitality program in the country, arguably the world. And so they came together with FCI. They offered one scholarship. The scholarship was to write a fully baked business plan and submit it. And if they thought it was good enough, whoever, they were going to give a full scholarship to one person. And I wrote the plan. I don't know how many other people wrote the plan, but I got the scholarship. And so I spent a little 2.5 years there. When I graduated, I started writing a plan, and like a real business plan. And I spent a year working on the plan, and I convinced my old friend Daniel to come back to New York and do this with me. And at this point, I'm like 27, and I've been working at Frank since I was 20. So all the regulars at this restaurant have kind of seen me go from this like young, fun party animal kid to getting sober to meeting a woman. I got married in 2007. That like basically that year that I graduated, I got married, and then going back to school. Anyway, these guys saw the arc.
That's cool to see.
Yeah,
the evolution.
I put a plan in front of all these regulars, business plan, and 14 of them wrote me $25,000 checks, and that's how I started at the Meatball Shop. All the guys that watched me sort of grow at Frank, the restaurant, invested in the business, and so we opened up the Meatball Shop, and it was just crazy. It was gangbusters. We projected to do like $1 million our first year. We did 4 million. And
is that with one shop?
One store. Yeah. 1,000 square feet, all in, 38 seats. It was nuts.
I was checking out the Instagram of the Meatball Shop, and it made me instantly crave meatballs. Is the menu, is the operations, is the vision still intact today from what it first started as?
It's very different.
Because you're no longer operational in the Meatball Shop, correct?
No, I sold the majority of my equity at Meatball Shop in 2014, and then started Seymour's, which is my second restaurant concept. I kept equity in the business because I love the business, but Daniel, my partner, and I just couldn't see eye to eye. We had a couple of things happen that was, pretty tough for us to navigate together. Partnerships are really hard,
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, they're hard. And we had an opportunity to really do a deal that would have changed our lives and still owned a significant piece of the business. And I couldn't convince him that was the right decision. And when I knew that, the two of us had started, we each invested $20,000 of money that we'd saved. And we had an opportunity to sell, 60% of the business at a $45 million valuation that would have changed our lives drastically.
Yeah.
And he thought it was worth more. I told him, I was like, dude, you're nuts. Like, you're crazy. This valuation is way inflated. And he was like, we have a store in construction. We have a store in negotiation. 7 months down the road, we'll open up that store. 10 months down the road, we'll have another store. And I'm like, Dan, the business is worth like 25 million. These guys want the business. They want it. They want to spread these across the country, man. They want us to say yes to the deal. And it's the same guys that did Shake Shack. David Swinghammer and Ken Fox from Stripes Group. Anyway, couldn't convince them. I knew that was my cue to like go create again, because that just didn't make sense to me. I was like, dude, in 3.5 years, you will have turned 20,000 into 10 million personally. Like, come on.
Great return.
Dude, and still owning 15, 20% of the business.
Yeah, it's I think it's the downfall of many entrepreneurs and founders is, in this period of time, your business may be worth X. And at any period of time, you can say, yeah, but 1 year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it'll be worth X plus. That is always the case, potentially. What's your goal with Creatures of Habit? Do you want to build for it to be a legacy family company, or is it something that you're building to sell?
I'm building it to sell it. I know now at this point in my career that I really, really love community, culture, brand, creativity, connecting. And I think those are at their peak within the first 10 years of building a business. And I could be wrong, but from my experience, specifically in the world of restaurants, what I saw was I went from 1 restaurant to 6 restaurants and sold a bunch of equity. I went from 6 restaurants to 13 restaurants. And what I learned was my role as the founder, CEO of the company was real estate deals, managing construction crews, and leading management meetings. That was the brunt of my job. Leadership meetings, managing construction crews, and doing real estate deals, dealing with landlords essentially. And I was like, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
Like I signed up because I love being with the people. I love being with the people. I was like New York City's youngest restaurant guy, like owner, right? Like if you saw me in the restaurant and you didn't know who I was, chances are you thought I was a server or busboy. And I was down with that because I was always serving and bussing tables, because I loved it. I love it. I spent many years as a technician before I was there's an unbelievable book that I always love to suggest aspiring entrepreneurs to read. It's called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber.
I've never heard of that one.
Great book. Basically, he describes this idea that like just because you're a technician does not mean you are going to be a great owner. Just because you're the greatest plumber at the plumbing company doesn't mean that you're going to be the great plumbing company owner.
It's true.
If you are going, and it also clearly defines what partnership has to be in order for it to be successful. If you're going to go into partnership with someone, you need to have a very, very clear delineation of labor. You need to know very clearly what you are going to do, very clearly what your partner is going to do. And there needs to be a boundary between the two of you that is deeply respected. Deeply, deeply, deeply respected.
Mm-hmm.
And if that boundary starts to get crossed, and if someone thinks they're doing more than the other person, you start valuing your role as to their role, it's over. It's just over.
Resentment is birthed and destruction and erosion from there is just chaotic. But I can imagine the brick and mortar
It's just tough.
space is it's different from e-com, CPG, but tougher. More overhead.
Well,
more
it's just,
people.
I think the human capital component of it makes it really, really hard because at any given time, 10 to 15% of the people are not having a good day.
Mm-hmm.
It's just life, right? Like you're lucky if 10% of your life is awesome. I mean, if you only have 10% of your life, that sucks, right? Like most of the time, I would say 85% of my days are great, where I'm happy. 15%, right? Just like can't shake a shitty feeling, And so at any given time, you got to know that 15% or something like that of your team is having that day. And every time that a guest or a customer comes into contact with someone like that, they tell their friends that they had a shitty experience, And so, and in the restaurant business, dissimilar to e-com, where I don't know. I mean, we have how many different opportunities to market, how many different marketing strategies, how many, you've got so many ways to get in front of people. In the restaurant business, they got to walk by.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They have to walk by your place, or you've got to have some kind of local PR thing that hits.
And it's to live close by to use the product or service.
So the only way to efficiently market in the restaurant business is through offering the greatest experience. It is, when people used to ask me in the world when I was kind of like had evolved a little bit in my role as a restaurateur, people would say, "What do you do?" And I know it sounds corny, but it's just way more fulfilling to me to say I'm a memory maker than I own restaurants. Because what do I really do? I make memories for people all day long. My number one priority, number one goal as a business person is to create a memory that you tell your friends about. That's all I'm trying to do. And the memory comes from great service, good food, cool environment, good music, good lighting. It all is kind of like a medley.
Yeah.
and, like, I think where the things get hairy, and this was for me, when my role became far less about the hands-on, boots on the ground stuff, leading the business with a P&L just never sat well with me, and when the money guys get involved, because they did in my businesses, all they care about is what that piece of paper
all that
says.
matters.
And I used to say, like, we used to start our board meetings with the numbers. And I'd look around and I'd say, hey guys, I'm just going to say it again. This never happened. A guest walked into our restaurant, looked around, smelled all the smells and said, gosh, I wonder what the P&L is like in this place. Never not happened one time.
Yeah.
And you're prioritizing the one thing that the guests never, ever come into contact with or think about. And the only sign of success for us is if they walk out the door 10% happier than when they walked in. It's only got to be 10%.
Mm-hmm.
It's not big. Your number one priority is the paper that you can really make say anything. Right? You can project. You can project it to say anything you want. The truth is in the experience, and that was tough for me.
Yeah, it's the battle between the subjective feedback versus the objective feedback, and objective feedback and results will tell a story, but the solution isn't often objective in itself. It's a subjective problem-solving approach.
That said, I am like, I really believe that I am more aligned in Creatures of Habit than I've ever been in business before, because Creatures of Habit it's given me an opportunity to really share some habits and tools that I've used in my life that's only brought me joy and happiness. Foundational wellness. My habits almost killed me, and then they created me. And I just know that habit is everything.
Mm-hmm.
The same decisions over and over again. People are like, oh, that's so boring. I'm like, no. Not when you're getting better every time.
Yeah. There's power in it. There's power in habit, power in consistency, commitment, ritual. I mean, it's been powerful in my life. And I think it's fundamental. It's a principle.
I mean, if you do something for the first time, you're not going to be great at it. But if you continue doing it, you're going to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way life is. And that is why ultimately habits work. Because, I think in the beginning it's hard, and then it becomes a chore. And then you continue in the chore phase long enough, it becomes a habit. And then habits, could last forever, especially if you're intentional about them, because you will see that you will get better and better and better. I go to the gym. Training for me is, life. It's life. I wouldn't know what to do without it. It wasn't always like that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, going to train in some way, shape, or form is just not even a thought. Like, oh, am I going to do it? It's just, I do it,
It's part of your day, part of your life, non-negotiable.
Yeah.
It's cool to see, witness, and now hear this story and see like where you started and the journey to where you are today and the highs and lows and everything in between. I think it's an inspiration to a lot of people of, you look at someone at where they're at in a point of time, and you probably think, oh, I know exactly how this person got here. You have no clue. No clue. And I'm sure now you don't even recognize the person you are and what you've accomplished compared to the person you were at 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, almost dying from overdose. But the journey is like so beautiful and so rewarding. And it's a reminder to everyone of no matter where you're at today, it can change tomorrow.
Never too late, man.
Never too late. It's amazing, brother.
Thank you, man.
But I appreciate you coming on, man, and sharing the story and just insight into what it's taken to get to where you are today.
Thank you, man.
It's really powerful.
Thank you for having me. And dude, you've been such an inspiration. You know, I mean, just in all things. You know, when I also, you know, I see what you've done with this brand, and you've done. It's like, and I'm sure you probably have a lot of things to say about this, but just like for a guy that's just coming into this industry, you know, 4 years in, and just seeing how you've done it, the community that you've built, dude, is just incredible.
I appreciate that.
It's incredible.
Thank you.
And also hearing you talk about God, right? Like, that's inspiring for me.
I would encourage you to lean in and be unapologetic, be courageous and bold in that walk. Because in my opinion, and in my walk since committing my life, it has been the best decision I've ever made. And it's put all the pieces that I've been trying for years to just match together. My life was this puzzle where I just cannot finish the puzzle. I cannot put it all together. Putting God above all other things allowed me to sit back and start to move some of those puzzle pieces back to where they belong. And now things make sense because there's the truth, there's the way, the only way. So I'm pumped to hear that you're on this journey. And like I said, if I can be a resource in any way,
I'm going to knock on your door, man.
Let me know.
I appreciate you having me on, dude.
Thanks, man.